Wilson from Glad Tidings Church in Chloe, Florida, and today I will be presenting a short sermon entitled RTBE, and my verses I will be using today are Matthew chapter 24, 45 through 51, 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, verse 14, and Psalms 135 through 6. Hi everyone, I was just wondering if it was okay if I could start by asking a question. Okay? Just by show of hands, how many of us struggle with being impatient or just being upset whenever things don't work our way? If you do, it's okay, because as you can see, many hands were up in the room, so it's a pretty universal struggle amongst the world. But have you ever just sat yourself down and thought that maybe you're struggling with this impatience because it stems more from you focusing on your timeline rather than God's?
Yeah.
But enough of what I have to say about this. Let's get into what some of God has to say about impatience. So we're going to be reading quite a bit here, but if we open to Matthew 24, verses 45 through 51, it says, "Who then is the faithful and wise servant whom the master has put in charge of the servants in his household to give them their food at the proper time? It will be good for that servant whose master finds him doing so when he returns. Truly, I tell you, he will be put in charge of all of his possessions. But suppose that servant is wicked and says to himself, 'My master is staying away a long time,' and he then begins to beat his fellow servants and to eat and drink with the drunk. The master of that servant will come on a day he does not expect and an hour he is not aware of. He will cut him into pieces and assign him to a place with the hypocrites where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." Now, coming from these verses, it brings me to my first point. When we follow God's timing, we are led to a path of righteousness, but when we deny God's timing, we are led to a path of destruction.
Yeah.
Now, when I found these verses, I was on a family trip in St. Augustine, and we had stopped by this one little shop. And in the middle of the shop, there was this Bible set up. And I thought, let me open the Bible and see what hits me. Now, like my youth pastor always says before every sermon he speaks, "Lord, speak to me, I'm listening." So I said just that, and I opened up right to these verses, and it kind of hit me how spot on the Lord was with that time in my life. And I was just going down a very destructive path and leading to a lifestyle that I had prayed and fought so hard to get out of. So finding these verses really snapped me back into reality. Now, I feel that whenever we tell anyone to just trust the Lord's timing and that his timing is right for us, they automatically think, well, the Lord takes forever. But in Psalms 130, verses 5 through 6, we are told, "I wait for the Lord, my whole being waits, and in his word I put my hope. I wait for the Lord more than the watchmen wait for the morning, more than the watchmen wait for the morning." Maybe it's time for you to, instead of complaining about all that the Lord doesn't do in your life, start filling that impatience with intentionality. Because when we work towards following the Lord's timing, we are working towards following the right timing for our lives. But we need to know that when we follow the Lord's timing, it's never a definite, which kind of goes hand in hand with the title of my sermon today, RTBE. Now, as we know, TBD usually means to be determined. And as I was preparing for this sermon, I was really struggling to find a title, so at the top of my notes, I just put TBD. And then that got me thinking that TBD could have another meaning. This meaning stands for timing's been decided.
That's great, yeah.
Because if we look into our word and we look into what God has to say, our timing's been decided. From the moment that the cross went up, our timing was decided. From the moment that there was light on this world, our timing was decided. But if God's timing has been the right timing since the beginning, why haven't we been following that timing since our beginning? Well, if we think about it, it's kind of hard to follow this timing when we have so many earthly sources telling us these shortcuts and easy ways to get what we want. But if we follow the Lord's timing, we find that we're not getting what we want, but what we need from him.
Yeah.
Now let me bring you to my one final verse. This verse is 2 Thessalonians 3, verse 14, and it says, "Take special note of anyone who does not obey our instruction in this letter. Do not associate with them in order that they may feel ashamed." Now, following the Lord's timing is hard, and it comes with removing those who do not follow his timing from our lives. Because earthly sources will deafen you from what the Lord is truly telling you. But in order to remove these sources, we need to trust in our word and remind ourselves daily that our timing has already been decided and that the Lord is just waiting for us to join him. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Aubree!